If you're over 65 and still driving in the UK, what I'm about to tell you could determine whether you keep your license beyond 2026. The government has just announced sweeping changes to driving laws that will directly impact every senior driver in Britain, and if you don't know about these changes right now, you could face fines, penalty points, or even lose your right to drive altogether. This isn't scaremongering. This is fact. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to protect your driving license and stay legal on British roads. Welcome back to UK State Pension with David. I'm David, and I'm here to help you navigate the changes and challenges that affect your life as a senior in the United Kingdom. If this is your first time joining us, this channel is dedicated to keeping you informed about your rights, your benefits, and the laws that impact your daily life. We cut through the confusion and give you straightforward, practical information you can actually use. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell because the information I share here could save you money, protect your independence, and keep you on the right side of the law. Right? Let's dive straight into these shocking driving law changes for 2026 because time is absolutely of the essence. The Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency, working alongside the Department for Transport, has been quietly rolling out some of the most significant changes to UK driving laws in decades, and seniors are right at the heart of these reforms. Now, I want to be clear from the start. These changes aren't necessarily designed to get older drivers off the road. The official line is that they're about improving road safety for everyone. But the reality is that if you're 65 or older, these new rules will affect you more than any other age group, and you need to be prepared. Let's start with the most fundamental change, and this is the one that's causing the most concern among older drivers across the country. The license renewal process for drivers aged 70 and over is being completely overhauled. Now, you might already know that when you reach 70 in the UK, you have to renew your driving license every 3 years. This has been the rule for many years. But what's changing in 2026 is how that renewal process works and what evidence you'll need to provide. Currently, when you renew at 70, you essentially just fill out a form declaring that you're fit to drive. It's based on self-assessment and honesty. You confirm that you meet the eyesight requirements, that you don't have any medical conditions that would make you unsafe behind the wheel, and that's generally that. The DVLA trusts you to be truthful. From 2026 onwards, this self-certification system is being replaced with a more rigorous assessment process. The DVLA will now require additional medical information for all drivers renewing their license at 70 and beyond. This doesn't necessarily mean you'll need a full medical examination every time, but it does mean you'll need to provide more detailed information about your health status. If you have certain medical conditions, you'll need to get a report from your GP or specialist confirming that your condition is under control and doesn't affect your ability to drive safely. And here's the crucial bit. Your doctor will need to sign off on this, and that could mean paying for a private medical report because the NHS doesn't always provide these free of charge. We're talking about potential costs of £50 to £150 or even more, depending on what's required. The conditions that trigger this additional scrutiny include diabetes, heart conditions, neurological disorders like Parkinson's or epilepsy, mental health conditions, sleep apnea, and any condition that causes sudden lapses of consciousness or seizures. If you have any of these conditions and you're over 70, you'll need that medical clearance. But even if you don't have a diagnosed condition, the new rules mean the DVLA can request additional information if they have any concerns based on your renewal application. This is a significant shift from the trust-based system we've had for years. Eyesight requirements are also being tightened up considerably. We all know that vision naturally deteriorates as we age. It's just a fact of life. The current requirement is that you must be able to read a number plate from 20 meters away in good daylight. That's about 67 feet or roughly 5 car lengths. If you can't do this, you shouldn't be driving, and it's actually a criminal offense to drive if you don't meet the eyesight standard. What's changing in 2026 is that the DVLA will be introducing mandatory vision tests as part of the renewal process for drivers over 70. Previously, you just had to declare that you met the standard. Now, you'll need to prove it. This could mean taking a test at a designated center, or it might mean providing a certificate from an optician confirming that your vision meets the legal requirements. Again, this is an additional step and potentially an additional cost that didn't exist before. Let's talk about cognitive assessments because this is where things get quite controversial. There's been increasing debate in recent years about whether older drivers should undergo cognitive testing to ensure they can still react appropriately to road conditions, process information quickly, and make safe decisions behind the wheel. The government has been very careful about how they've approached this because they don't want to be seen as discriminating against older people. However, from 2026, there will be a new voluntary cognitive assessment program available for drivers over 65. Now, you might think voluntary means you can just ignore it, but here's where it gets interesting. Insurance companies are being given access to information about whether you've taken this assessment, and they can use it as a factor in determining your premiums. What this means in practice is that if you don't take the voluntary assessment, your car insurance could go up significantly because insurers will view you as a higher risk. It's voluntary in name only. The cognitive assessment itself isn't particularly difficult for someone who's cognitively healthy. It tests things like reaction time, ability to process multiple pieces of information simultaneously, hazard perception, and decision-making under pressure. These are all crucial skills for safe driving. If you pass the assessment, you get a certificate that you can share with your insurer, potentially keeping your premiums lower. If you struggle with the assessment, it's a warning sign that you might need to reconsider whether you should still be driving, or at least whether you should be limiting your driving to certain conditions like daytime only or familiar routes only. Speed limiters and vehicle technology requirements are another massive change coming in 2026. New cars sold in the UK are already required to have what's called intelligent speed assistance, which is a system that warns you when you're exceeding the speed limit and can actually slow your car down if you don't respond. From 2026, there are proposals to extend certain technology requirements to older vehicles as well, particularly those driven by seniors. The idea is that if you're over 70 and you're driving a car that's more than 10 years old, you may need to have certain safety features retrofitted, or you may be restricted in where and when you can drive that vehicle. This hasn't been fully finalized yet, but it's something the Department for Transport is actively consulting on. Modern safety features like automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assistance, and blind spot monitoring could become mandatory for senior drivers, even if their current vehicle doesn't have them. The cost implications of this are enormous. Retrofitting these technologies isn't always possible, and when it is, it's expensive. Many older drivers could be forced to upgrade to newer vehicles at significant financial cost. Penalty points and disqualification rules are being adjusted specifically for older drivers as well. Currently, if you accumulate 12 penalty points on your license within a 3-year period, you face an automatic driving ban, typically for 6 months. The courts have some discretion in exceptional hardship cases, but the 12-point rule is pretty strict. What's changing for senior drivers is that the threshold is being lowered in certain circumstances. If you're over 70 and you commit certain types of offenses, particularly those related to awareness and reaction time, like failing to observe a stop sign, improper lane usage, or failing to give way, you'll accumulate points faster than a younger driver would for the same offense. The reasoning behind this is that these types of errors in older drivers are seen as potentially indicative of declining driving ability, whereas in younger drivers they might just be seen as carelessness or inexperience. Fair or not, this is the direction the law is heading. Medical reporting obligations are being strengthened across the board. If you develop any medical condition that could affect your driving, you have a legal duty to inform the DVLA. This has always been the case, but enforcement has been relatively lax. From 2026, there will be a new data sharing agreement between the NHS and the DVLA. What this means is that if you're diagnosed with certain conditions that affect driving, your GP or hospital consultant may be required to report this to the DVLA directly. You'll still have a duty to report it yourself, but the DVLA will also be receiving information independently. The list of reportable conditions is being expanded to include more age-related conditions like macular degeneration, certain types of arthritis that affect mobility and control, and early-stage dementia or cognitive decline. If you're found to have been driving with a reportable condition that you didn't declare, you could face prosecution, a fine of up to £1,000, and automatic disqualification from driving. Now let's talk about insurance, because the changes to driving laws are having a knock-on effect on car insurance for seniors, and it's not good news. Insurance companies are already charging higher premiums for drivers over 65, and these new regulations are giving them even more justification to increase prices. The Association of British Insurers has indicated that premiums for drivers over 70 could increase by 15 to 30% in 2026 as a direct result of these law changes and the additional assessments required. Some insurers are introducing new policy conditions specifically for older drivers, such as limiting annual mileage, requiring annual vehicle inspections, or mandating that you only drive during daylight hours. If you breach these conditions, your insurance could be invalidated, which means if you have an accident, you're personally liable for all the costs, and you'd also be driving without insurance, which is a serious criminal offense. Practical driving tests for seniors are being introduced on a trial basis in several regions of the UK. This is perhaps the most controversial change of all. Unlike the cognitive assessment, which tests mental function, this is an actual on-road driving test similar to what learner drivers take. The trials are starting in 2026 in select areas, and if they're deemed successful, they could be rolled out nationwide. The current proposal is that drivers over 75 would be required to take a practical test every 5 years. If you fail, you lose your license and would need to take driving lessons and retest, just like a learner. The government insists this isn't about taking licenses away from older people, but about ensuring everyone on the road is safe. Critics argue it's age discrimination and that dangerous driving should be addressed through existing traffic laws regardless of age. Regardless of where you stand on the principle, if you're in one of the trial areas, this is your reality from 2026. So what does all of this mean for you as a senior driver in the UK, and what should you be doing right now to prepare? First and foremost, book an eye test immediately if you haven't had one recently. Make sure your vision meets the legal standard. If you need glasses for driving, make sure your prescription is up to date. If you're struggling to see clearly, especially at night or in poor weather, that's a sign you need to get checked. Second, if you have any medical conditions, make sure they're being properly managed and that your doctor knows you're a driver. Have an honest conversation with your GP about whether your conditions could affect your driving. It's better to address this proactively than to have the DVLA raise concerns later. Third, consider taking the voluntary cognitive assessment even if you don't think you need to. It's better to know where you stand, and having that certificate could save you money on insurance. Fourth, familiarize yourself with the new license renewal process. The DVLA website has updated guidance for drivers over 70, and you should read through this carefully so you know exactly what will be required of you when your license comes up for renewal. Don't leave it until the last minute. Start gathering any medical information you might need well in advance. Fifth, look at your vehicle and honestly assess whether it has the safety features that might soon be required. If you're driving an older car without modern safety technology, you might want to consider upgrading sooner rather than later, or at least investigate what retrofitting options are available and what they cost. Sixth, review your car insurance policy and shop around. Don't just accept the first renewal quote you get. There are insurers who specialize in cover for older drivers and who may offer more competitive rates. Make sure you understand any conditions or restrictions in your policy. Finally, and this is perhaps the hardest thing to consider, start thinking about your long-term driving future. At some point, all of us will need to stop driving. It's not a reflection on your value as a person or your independence. It's just a reality of aging. The question is whether you'll make that decision proactively when you still have time to plan and adjust, or whether it will be made for you by the DVLA or by circumstances like an accident. Think about what alternatives exist in your area. Is there good public transport? Could you use community transport services? Are taxis or private hire vehicles affordable for your needs? Would moving closer to amenities make sense? These are big questions, but the sooner you start thinking about them, the more control you'll have over your future. I know this has been quite a lot of heavy information, and some of it is probably concerning if you're a senior driver who relies on your car for independence and quality of life. But here's the thing, knowledge is power. By understanding these changes now, you can prepare, you can adapt, and you can continue driving safely and legally for as long as you're able. The worst thing you can do is ignore these changes and hope they don't affect you. They will affect you. The best thing you can do is take action now. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up because it helps other people find this crucial information. Share it with friends or family members who are senior drivers. They need to know about this too. Leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on these changes. Do you think they're fair? Are you concerned about how they'll affect you? What's your biggest worry about driving as you get older? I read every single comment, and your input helps me create content that addresses your real concerns. And if you haven't subscribed to UK State Pension with David yet, please do that right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I'll be keeping you updated on these driving law changes as more details emerge throughout 2026, and I cover all sorts of topics that affect your life as a senior in the UK. Remember, your independence matters, your safety matters, and staying informed is how you protect both. Thank you so much for watching today. I'm David, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue helping you navigate the challenges and opportunities of life in the United Kingdom. Drive safely, stay legal, and take care until next time.